On a luxury cruise filled with lights, laughter, and lies, a millionaire silenced his wife with a slap and a cruel whisper. "You are nothing without me." But within hours, she would uncover a secret buried deep in his empire, and by nightfall, the woman he tried to break would bring his world crashing down. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The soft hum of music drifted through the air, like a ribbon of silk. Perfume and polished shoes filled the luxury cruise's ballroom, where golden chandeliers glittered above. Guests laughed, glasses clinked, and the walls echoed with practiced charm. People in black suits and sparkling gowns moved gracefully, their conversations about power, money, and everything in between. Naomi Wells stood at the edge of the hall, in a deep green dress that shimmered when she moved. Her smile was delicate, almost fragile, like something painted on rather than felt. Beside her stood Caleb Rohn, her husband, a powerful man with salt and pepper hair, dressed in a navy suit that looked custom-made. His hand rested lightly on her lower back, more for control than comfort. "Stay close, Naomi," he whispered with a smile that never touched his eyes. "Of course," she replied quietly. They approached a small group of men, including Mr. Hayashi, a well-known investor from Japan. Caleb shook hands and exchanged a few jokes that made the others laugh politely. "This is my wife Naomi," Caleb said, his tone light but firm. "She's a sculptor, an artist, though these days she prefers to focus on more quiet things." Naomi smiled and gave a small nod. The men looked at her and nodded back before diving back into talks about trade routes and shipping licenses. She stood quietly, her hands folded, trying not to fidget. She was used to this by now, being present but not seen. But tonight felt different. The lights were too bright, the room too loud. Her skin itched with the weight of pretending. Minutes passed. Caleb leaned in, whispering things in foreign languages, laughing at jokes she didn't understand. Her gaze drifted toward the window, where the sea stretched like a black sheet under the moonlight. Then it happened. Mr. Hayashi turned toward her, breaking the pattern. "Mrs. Rohn," he said gently, "what are your thoughts on green shipping technology?" Naomi blinked. For a moment she hesitated. All eyes turned to her, even Caleb. She cleared her throat softly. "I think it's a wise investment. With the right innovation, it could open doors to sustainable trade. It may even set new global standards, especially in Southeast Asia." The room went quiet for 2 seconds, long enough to feel like a mistake. Caleb laughed. Not the kind of laugh that brings joy, but the one that cuts. "Naomi has such lovely ideas," he said, putting his hand on her shoulder. "She reads now and then, mostly art books, but she's still learning the world of business." The investors chuckled, polite, dismissive. Naomi's cheeks burned, her fingers tightened around her wine glass, but she didn't say anything. She had learned not to. Later that night, as the party thinned and conversations turned to small talk, Naomi excused herself. She made her way to the top deck. The cold night air hit her like a wall. It was quiet here, with only the sound of waves brushing against the hull. She leaned against the railing and breathed deeply. It was the first real breath she had taken all day. Behind her, the sound of footsteps echoed. She turned slowly. Caleb was there, his smile gone. "What was that down there?" he asked, his voice low and tight. Naomi straightened. "I was just answering a question." He stepped closer. "And embarrassing me in front of investors." "I didn't mean—" "Of course you didn't." His words snapped like dry branches. "You never mean to, do you?" She backed away a step. His hand came fast, sudden. The glass in her hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Her cheek stung. She touched it with trembling fingers. "You're a disaster," he said through gritted teeth. "I built you. Without me, you're nothing." Naomi stared at him. The world felt distant. The cold wind blew her hair into her face and tears welled in her eyes. But something inside her shifted. Not fear, not shame, something else. She said nothing as he turned and walked away. She stood there, the glass at her feet, glittering like stars broken on the floor. In the mirror of their suite, she looked at herself. Her cheek was red, already swelling. But her eyes, they were different now. She remembered being young, making sculptures out of clay with bare hands, dreaming of studios and galleries. That girl was gone, but maybe not forever. Naomi leaned forward and whispered, "You buried me, but I'm still here." And for the first time in years, she didn't feel silent. She felt awake. The morning sun was hidden behind gray clouds. Soft waves tapped against the side of the ship like a warning no one could hear. Naomi woke early. Her cheek still ached, and the red mark had turned darker overnight. She stood in the bathroom, gently touching her face, watching herself in the mirror. She didn't cry. Instead, she brushed her hair, tied it into a loose braid, and left the suite without a sound. The hallway was quiet, the other guests still asleep. She needed air. She needed space. On her way to the upper deck, she passed by the lounge where a young waitress stood setting cups on silver trays. The girl looked up and gave a small, shy smile. "Morning, miss," the girl said softly. "Morning," Naomi replied. The girl's name tag read Lucy. She looked no older than 20, with freckles and kind eyes. "You okay?" Lucy asked gently. Naomi hesitated, then nodded. "Just needed a walk." Lucy nodded in understanding. "The lower decks are peaceful this time of day. There's a little gallery downstairs near the crew's hallway. Not many people know about it. It's quiet there." "A gallery?" Lucy smiled. "It's small, just paintings and some sculptures. But it's nice, peaceful." Naomi whispered, "Thank you," and turned to find it. She followed the winding stairs down past the guest cabins, past a storage room, and found a narrow hallway. At the end was a small wooden door, half open. Inside, soft lights glowed on the walls. The room was quiet except for a faint instrumental melody playing from a speaker. She stepped in slowly. Paintings lined the walls, some bold, some quiet. Colors danced on canvas, some loud with pain, others whispering peace. In one corner stood a sculpture made from driftwood and metal. It looked like two hands reaching out of the sea. Naomi stood still. Something in her chest shifted. Then she heard footsteps. A man with messy brown hair and glasses walked in from the back room holding a box of art supplies. He looked surprised to see her. "Oh," he said with a kind smile. "You're here early." Naomi gave a soft smile back. "I didn't know this place existed." "Most people don't," he replied, setting down the box. "I'm Ronan Hale. I manage this little exhibit. We travel with the ship, change the art every few months." He looked at her again, his eyes narrowing slightly in thought. "Wait, I know you." Naomi blinked. "You do? You're Naomi Wells, right? You used to sculpt clay, stone, metal. I remember your piece called The Silence of Fire. I saw it in a New York gallery 7 years ago." She stared at him. It had been years since anyone mentioned her work like that. "I haven't sculpted in a long time," she said quietly. "That's a shame," Ronan said, tilting his head. "Your work was powerful, emotional. People felt things when they saw it." Naomi looked away. "My husband prefers me focused on other things." Ronan didn't press. He just nodded slowly. "Well, if you ever want to talk about art again, you're always welcome here." He walked to the back room, leaving her alone once more. Naomi moved closer to one of the paintings. It showed a single red bird trapped in a golden cage, its wings half open, its beak shut. Her fingers moved as if tracing the outline. Her heart beat faster. She remembered the feeling, the rush of creating, the messy hands, the late nights, the fire of expression. All of it had been buried under silence and control. For the first time in years, she felt that flame flicker again. Leaving the gallery, she walked back through the narrow hallway. Her thoughts raced. Caleb had stolen so much from her. Her voice, her art, her identity. But now she had seen a window crack open. Back in the suite, she found Caleb asleep. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. She ignored it. Her eyes went to the locked drawer on his desk. Except today, it wasn't locked. Curiosity tugged at her. She stepped closer, slowly opened the drawer. Inside were folders, neatly arranged. One was labeled Venari Group, East Shipping Routes. Another was titled Client Reserves, Private Access Only. There were spreadsheets, coded documents, and transfer slips. Naomi's hands trembled. She wasn't an expert in finance, but something felt wrong. Names were hidden behind numbers. Companies she had never heard of. Amounts too large to be clean. She found a flash drive. No label. Just plain silver. Her heart pounded in her chest. What is this? Before she could think more, she heard Caleb stirring. She slid the drawer shut and stepped away. But the fire had started. The spark from the gallery now burned brighter. For the first time, Naomi began to wonder if she had something Caleb feared more than her silence. She had the truth. And she was ready to remember who she truly was. Naomi sat alone in the corner of the ship's library. The small flash drive lay in her hand, cold and smooth. She stared at it, her thoughts racing. She knew this wasn't just Caleb's private work. There was something hidden inside, something dangerous. Her fingers tightened around it. For years, she had felt powerless. For years, she had kept quiet. Now, the silence felt heavier than ever. And yet, deep inside her, something had changed. She was no longer afraid to ask questions. She was no longer afraid to see the truth. She slid the flash drive into her pocket and stood. The quiet library turned louder in her ears as she walked out, like a heartbeat growing faster. Her steps were steady, but her hands still trembled. She needed to do something. She needed to find someone who could help her understand what was on that drive. Naomi walked toward the lower deck. She remembered Ronan, the kind man from the gallery. He had seen her for who she used to be. Maybe he could help again. But as she reached the art room, it was empty. No sign of Ronan, just soft music playing from the speakers. She turned to leave when someone spoke behind her. Looking for someone? Naomi jumped slightly. A man with silver hair and sharp eyes stood in the doorway. He wore a simple coat and had a leather notebook in his hand. Sorry, she said, I didn't mean to bother anyone. You're not bothering, he said calmly. I'm Silas Marin. She looked at him confused. You're not part of the crew, are you? He gave a small smile. Retired journalist, traveling alone, but still curious about the world and people. Naomi hesitated, then sat down, slowly. You ever feel like you're being watched? She asked. More times than I can count, he replied. And when I was right, it usually meant someone was hiding something. Naomi didn't know why she trusted him. Maybe it was his calm voice. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not with judgment, but with patience. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the flash drive. I found this in my husband's drawer, she said. He's hiding things. I think they're illegal. Silas didn't touch it. Instead, he leaned in slightly. You sure you want to go down that road? I've stayed silent for too long, she said. I can't anymore. He nodded slowly. Meet me tonight. Room 6112. We'll check what's on it together. Naomi left the art room with a strange mix of fear and relief. Her next steps were heavy but certain. That night in room 612, Silas connected the flash drive to a small laptop. The screen lit up, showing folders, spreadsheets, and scanned papers. They read through documents that mentioned shell companies, off the record, bank accounts, and strange coded names. There were contracts tied to international shipments, some that looked too perfect to be real. This isn't just tax hiding, Silas whispered. This is a network, money laundering, maybe even trafficking. And it's global. Naomi felt sick. He told me everything he did was for us, for our future. He lied. Silas said simply. But you have something powerful now. Evidence. She sat back in the chair thinking. What if I use my art? She said slowly. Your art? I used to sculpt and paint. I still can. What if I use that to tell this story? Without saying a word, I can show everything. I can place clues inside the art, hidden but visible to those who look closely. Silas looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. That's a bold idea. He made me invisible, Naomi whispered. Now I'll make him seen. In the days that followed, Naomi returned to the art room every evening. The crew thought she was preparing a private exhibit. Only Silas and one quiet crew member, a young woman named Marin, knew the truth. Her hands moved with purpose again. She shaped clay and painted canvases that told stories. Dark ships in blood-red seas, gold cages surrounded by wolves, faces with no eyes. Behind each brushstroke was a secret. She coded messages inside the colors, names of companies and patterns, numbers hidden inside waves. It was risky, but it was her only way. As she worked, Caleb noticed her change. She smiled more, moved with confidence. But he didn't ask. He thought she was finally accepting her role. He believed she was broken. That made her plan easier. When will the exhibit be ready? Silas asked one evening. Soon, she said, placing the last sculpture on the table. And when it is, everyone will see the truth. And they'll see me too. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. Naomi was no longer just the girl who once painted. She was the woman who would use her art to bring down an empire. The gallery lights glowed like warm stars. Soft music filled the air and the hum of voices echoed gently through the wide hall. Guests walked slowly, sipping wine, admiring the art, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Naomi stood near the center of the room, dressed in a long, silver gown. Her hair was tied back, her face calm. But inside, her heart was beating fast. This was the moment, the one she had been working toward in secret. Tonight, her silence would end. Paintings lined the walls. Sculptures stood like silent guards across the floor. To many, they looked like beautiful pieces of art. But those who looked closer would see the story behind them. Hidden inside the waves of paint were numbers. Inside the folds of sculptures were names. Real names, company names, bank codes, symbols of the crimes Caleb had tried to hide. Ronan arrived quietly and gave her a small nod. He didn't know the full truth, but he supported her. Across the room, Silas stood by the media table. He had invited a few trusted journalists. Some of them already suspected something. They were here tonight waiting, watching. Then Caleb walked in. He wore a black suit, perfect as always. His smile was wide, but his eyes were sharp. He walked up to Naomi and kissed her cheek. "You've outdone yourself," he whispered. "You've finally accepted who you are." Naomi smiled back. "Yes," she said softly. "I have." As the guests moved around the room, Naomi walked over to the control table. The projector was ready. The slideshow set to begin in 5 minutes. Beside the projector was a small silver flash drive. Her hand brushed against it like it was a matchstick ready to spark. Caleb mingled with investors and spoke proudly of his success. He waved his hand toward the sculptures. "My wife's talent," he said, "finally back where it belongs." Then the room darkened slightly. The projector came to life. One by one, images appeared on the screen above. But they were not just art. The first slide showed a painting from the exhibit. But highlighted in red were hidden numbers, bank transfers to secret accounts. The next showed a sculpture of a ship but zoomed in. It revealed coded shipping documents. Then came a list of shell companies tied to arms deals. And finally, a picture of a contract with Caleb's signature. Guests gasped. Some stepped forward to look more closely. The journalists snapped photos. Whispers turned into a low wave of noise. Caleb turned, his smile vanishing. "What is this?" he shouted. Naomi stepped forward, calm as ever. "The truth," she said. He stormed toward her, grabbing her arm. "You think this will stop me?" he hissed. But before he could say more, 2 officers stepped through the crowd. They flashed their badges. "Caleb Rohn," one said. "You're under investigation. Step away from your wife." Cameras flashed. Voices rose. "You betrayed me," Caleb growled at Naomi. After everything I gave you, she met his eyes and replied softly, You never gave me anything. You only tried to take. As the officers let him out, the guests stood in stunned silence. Some whispered, others clapped. Naomi turned to the projector and watched as the final image appeared. It was a sculpture of a woman standing tall, her hands raised above her head, breaking out of a cage. A single word carved at the base. Free. Later that night, Naomi stood on the ship's deck, looking out at the dark sea. The wind brushed her hair back. The stars above seemed brighter now. Silas joined her quietly. You did it, he said. Not alone, she replied. What will you do now? She smiled. Go home. Start again. Maybe open a small studio, somewhere by the coast. He nodded. Your story will inspire many. Maybe, she said. But more than anything, I just want to live. Not survive. Live. Weeks passed. Caleb's name filled the news. The evidence had reached the right hands. Investigations spread. Arrests were made. People once untouchable now stood exposed. Naomi didn't watch the news much. She spent her days in a quiet town by the sea. She opened a studio. Not big, not famous, just hers. Children came to learn. Women came to heal. Every canvas she touched carried strength. Every sculpture held a piece of her journey. One morning, a young girl in her class asked, Miss Wells, how did you become so brave? Naomi paused. I wasn't always brave, she said. But one night, I remembered who I was, and I refused to forget again. The girl smiled and kept painting, and Naomi, the girl who once stayed silent, now helped others find their voices too. The ocean was calm outside the window, and for the first time in a long time, so was she.